Hey guys, Timestorm here. Just playing a little bit of KSP. Actually, this is pre-recorded KSP. This is actually one of the launches I did earlier today, and it was, I'm gonna say, well, my personal opinion, fairly beautiful. It was like one of the best launches I've ever had. It was my launch of my ISA Mapsat, and for those who don't know what ISA Mapsat is basically a part you can put on your ship that'll map out whatever planet you're orbiting, or moon. So it's actually a pretty little thing. So let's get started. Yeah, as you can see, just a basic rocket. Use the quad coupler on the bottom. The top stages, actually, the satellite's actually under the shroud, which is another one of my plugins. I can't remember which one. But yeah, it has plenty of thrust, had 4 engines on it. It's probably one of my better creations. And the way I'm going to launch this is into a polar orbit. Basically, I'm going to go over each pole, which will allow me maximum coverage of the planet. Downside to this, it's pretty slow. I'm also going to go about 100 kilometers, or 100,000 meters, I believe. 100 kilometers over the surface. And at that altitude, it'll map it at a very, very fine quality. I could have went farther out and covered most of the planet a lot quicker than I am. But what this allows me to do is get really fine detail of Kerbin's surface. So as you can see, my first stage is separated. At this point, I'm actually really good on fuel. I have no problem making it. And you can see I'm leaning over just to go to my launch profile, make sure I hit my altitude while maintaining as much velocity as possible. I'm just checking my apoapsis. And again, this was one of my most beautiful launches, I believe. Polar orbit's a little different. You have to compensate for the fact you're also launching with Kerbin, so you're already going a certain speed from the launch pad, and you're going to have to compensate for it some part of your maneuvers, so you can actually get perpendicular to the planet because you're already going forward. As you can see, my ball, I pretty much launched on north and it's pointing to the right. So I'll compensate for that, just bring my orbit out. Just a very, very simple orbit, and there we go, the shroud's away. As you can see, my Mapsat now. It's pretty simple, pretty small, compact satellite. You can also see all my debris of my 2 other satellites out there. And I'm just trying to straighten it up as much as possible, running to the left of north, or a little bit to the west. Just trying to get that center, or my prograde over the line, north line, while trying to also make sure I hit my altitude correctly. And actually, I might go a little bit below 100 kilometers. And there we go. I'm just above the atmosphere, or my apogee is just above it, or apoapsis. I say apogee, it's kind of synonymous, really. So the apoapsis is right above the, or almost right above the atmosphere right now. I'm still going up slightly to make sure I'm going to make it into orbit. One thing I've noticed is that sometimes um, going to map view, my SAS turns off. Not sure why. It's kind of annoying. I kind of go back to my ship and all of a sudden it's doing something completely different. As you see, I've already passed my apoapsis, which is not good. So now I'm kind of burning up to make sure I stay in orbit. As you can see, I'm just a little bit past it. If I don't do that, then I'm going to pretty much fall straight out of orbit. Luckily, I have enough thrust in this build to compensate for the drop, and you'll see my apoapsis start coming back toward me right there. So now I'm actually making progress instead of falling back to Kerbin in a fiery ball of well, really parts because there's no Kerbals in this ship. I think at this one I bring it out to about 100. Oh, 80. There we go, straightening up a little bit. At this point I have a decent orbit which I can work with fairly easily. I'm going to bring out the periapsis and just make sure I get this nice circular orbit. Nope, there it is. I'm going to screw that up in a second when I change the inclination, so I'm actually more over the poles. As you can see, I'm kind of to a lean right now. And just changing it a little bit. And what I do is I set the target to the moon, or to the moon, really. And if you set the target there, you can actually use the descending and ascending nodes for the moon to tell where you are in Kerbin. So basically, I just used that to make sure I was on 0, make sure I was over the poles. And I'll make sure that my periapsis is back to normal. Make sure I'm back in a circular orbit. And there it is. So in a few seconds here, I'll start doing my burn to round out my orbit. Still going a little bit. And my periapsis was really low. I would have came back to Kerbin on this if I didn't readjust it. I was just making sure that I'd have enough to possibly do it with the satellite, and make sure that tank falls back to Kerbin because I don't want that to be always in orbit. Trying to eliminate the trash I have in orbit. As you can see, I have quite a bit anyways. So now I'm going to set this little satellite to point toward my next burn, which is in about 2 minutes 15 seconds. This burn won't be perfect. I was going to... I didn't know how long it's going to take because I have a little ion engine on the satellite. Only I don't have my my group set up, so I have to just expand them manually. And all of them are out. As you can see close up to it, the big satellite on top is ISA Mapsat's part. And then those are out, then I can turn my engine on. It said a 6-second burn. I didn't believe it at all. I believe it was a little longer than that. It was about a 30-second burn. So I started a little early and I don't get a perfect orbit. As you can see now, it says about 30 seconds. Like I said, I don't believe it because I'm so low that I can't believe the little engine's actually working fairly well. Yep, and just going around, waiting for my burn, which is coming up here in a few seconds. And this is about where I start the burn. Only because I don't know if it'll actually take 30 seconds or not. As you can see, it is doing quite well. Not believing it at first, so I go and double check it. And the nice thing about these small engines for the satellites is that it allows you to make small, very small corrections. As you can see here, when I go down to 0.5 meters a second, I can just tap it really lightly and go down to 3, 2, and then I'll go back up to 3, and I'll say that's good enough. And checking my orbit, it is quite circular. It's over the poles. So just a little bit off, about a kilometer between apoapsis and periapsis, but that's not too big a deal. I'm just mapping the surface, and at that height, it won't be too much a difference. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to look at my Mapsat, and as you can see, it's already mapping out. Note that the very, very top line of pixels on that, I don't know, you probably have to look in high def, it starts to fill in the very, very, very north pole, which means I have a very good orbit over the poles, which I'm actually very pleasantly pleased about. That means I'm going to map the whole surface instead of just a small part of it. And if you watch the ball, it just spins all the way around, which means I'm, again, pretty close over the pole. Just pretty much dead center. But yeah, that was me getting my ISA Mapsat into a polar orbit. It was fun. It was an interesting and probably went very, very well. Probably better than a lot of my launches. But yeah, now I have a nice little Mapsat in orbit. That'll allow me to map Kerbin. Anyways, this is Time Storm. I'll see you next time.